Encourage the fact that our staff and you are holding these meetings, and certainly encourage the continuation of that. We feel as a council, I believe, that El Camino is a very dangerous artery in our town, probably the most dangerous. And we see as a trend that there's going to be an increasing amount of bicycle, pedestrian traffic using our streets and roads. It's just too bad that the bad things have to happen before they can be justified putting measures in to protect pedestrians and others. So anything that you can do, your department can do, and I understand that you're part of a state system and there are lots and lots of agencies that are asking for things, but anything that you can do to help the Mid-Peninsula here have a safer artery, where Atherton is somewhat unique in having 3 lanes in both directions, which encourages cars to speed up and get from Menlo Park to Redwood City, meet their appointments, because they can make up time in this section unless the chief and his fellows are out there patrolling the streets. But I just urge you and thank you for meeting with our town staff on these things.
Thank you. We'll continue to work with your staff to come up with both short-term and long-term solutions.
For public comment?
I have a question.
Is there a public comment?
What there's going to be after the after the council finishes, any other council comments?
Well, this came up as a full presentation to the Transportation Committee, and all of the points that have been made here, I think, were made at that time. And Caltrans has got this matrix for justifying anything they do, and the blinking lights across El Camino, which I think are wonderful, apparently did not satisfy that matrix. It's strange to me because, you know, the traffic light on Selby, I have some real question about that because it's very close to the traffic light on Fifth Avenue, and not sure that the money that we're spending on that wouldn't be better spent was the lighted crosswalks. But apparently, according to the person who was at the Transportation Committee, it didn't make any difference. That, you know, you got this matrix, and if the X's are not in the right place, they're not going to do it. So,
but that's not entirely true. We were told that if there are enough accidents, that there are circumstances where the warrants don't have to entirely be met in accordance with the system, that sometimes, depending upon how many accidents there are, you don't have to meet all the warrants. Remember we're saying that? But we didn't know what those circumstances would be and how many accidents and what severity. It sounds macabre to say that, but that was the explanation we were given.
yeah, but they said that they couldn't justify those at the moment.
But do we have a list of all the accidents in that area? I know, Chief, that your department has put together a list of accidents that we've investigated, we've been on board with. But do we have all jurisdictions, Menlo Park response, Redwood City response, California Highway Patrol response, fully consolidated, or as I've been told that we don't have that?
We do not collect collision stats on other jurisdictions. However, SWITRs, which is a statewide record keeping for that, would have that information. We can easily get more detailed information from the surrounding area.
Caltrans told me that they did have it because I asked for that information. And I was told that to obtain warrants in that area involved many work hours and cost a lot of money to effectively go through all the warrants that were required for each of those intersections. But as far as the traffic accidents that have occurred, or the pedestrian accidents that have occurred at each of the intersections, and I asked specifically about the pedestrian accidents, the woman said that they had those in their computer and it would not require anything more to to obtain that information?
Yes, we do have an accident database in our systems that is a computerized database that we can go back and check for accidents that were reported to the CHP. Now, of course, one of the problem is that, I mentioned that it has to be reported accident. For accidents that were never reported, we don't have information on those. And also, sometimes when the local police prepare the accident report, they forgot to check the box on the accident report saying that this is a state highway system. So for those accidents, we don't get the report. But we do have an accident database for our state highways.
And I did ask that you be given a copy of that, so I don't know if that was, the lady will follow through, but I asked to be sent to the town.
Okay, so Mike, do you have the list or?
Yes, we actually, back in early October, we sent an email to KDM, as Councilmember McKeith, and that's who you're referring to, requesting accident information along the entire segment of El Camino within the town of Atherton. It's about 1.6 miles. And I have a meeting scheduled with Katie next week, next Wednesday, to go over that request and check in with Caltrans to see where they are and gather that information.
Thank you.
So, I have a question. So did you just study Selby Lane intersection, or did you study Tuscaloosa, or Almondra, or Isabella, or Alejandra? Did you study any of those other intersections?
For El Camino and Shelby, we did the signal 1 study. Now, for signal 1 study, we have to collect 12-hour count. That's costly because we have to do manual count, meaning that we have to send at least two people out there for a whole 12 hours to do the counts. For other intersections, we have not collected, the traffic count information, but we did look at the accident history of those intersections. I don't remember the details, but we did look at it.
But so you decided to focus on Selby Lane intersection primarily. Was that the first one, or was that a specific request?
Actually, the Shelby Lane study was we started in 2005 at the request of the town.
Tell me something, is the town permitted to do anything on its own along that highway? Would the town be permitted to put up a blinking light, for example, on a median, warning, and a blinking light with a sign warning traffic that there's a pedestrian crossing?
Yes, definitely. If the town wishes to install the blinking light, we would be more than happy to work with the town to make sure that all our standards and requirements are met. And yes, we welcome the opportunity.
If we wanted to put up a pole with a blinking light and a sign that said pedestrian crossing that was manually operated, for example, we could do that.
Yes, but then we want to make sure that they met all the standards.
Of course, it has to meet the highway standards.
Right.
So just to continue, I wanted to ask another question about, does Caltrans along El Camino have any plans at all to create bikeable, safe bike routes, bike paths, or pedestrian paths? Because I walk around, I bike around, and we come up and we say, oh my gosh, we just can't go down El Camino there along this side path. It would take our life in our hands. So we turn around and walk back and go around the block again instead of being able to walk or bike along El Camino. Is there any future plans that El Camino may have, that Caltrans have for that?
I mentioned that the project that to be completed in 2017 or 2018 is actually a very large project that we would like to improve pedestrian safety on El Camino Area up and down the peninsula. It's a pilot project that we have initiated to basically enhance pedestrian crosswalk. We highlight them, put in an additional horizontal bar. We also put in what we call the advancing line, which we used to have on El Camino Real before, in Atherton before our resurfacing projects that are happening right now. Those sharp teeth type lines and also the warning signs. Also, so at certain locations, we are going to be installing the rectangular rapid flashing beacons just added this one intersection on El Camino Real in Atherton to our list. So we have a project for El Camino Real up and down the peninsula for pedestrian safety now. As far as a commuter bicycle, early in your agenda, you talk about a complete street. That is what that is all about. Making the roadway more safer and usable for all users. So that's part of the complete street. So we are part of that effort, complete street effort, and to improve the safety and operations of El Camino Real.
So is there a plan that is drawn out with specifications or descriptions that, you could provide us, that we can look at and, envision and talk to our residents about? Because we get questions all the time, how can we make our area of El Camino Real safer for pedestrians and bikes?
Right now, the plan is part of our desire to continue to meet with the town staff to try to come up with some workable solutions. Is part of the effort for long-term improvements.
So we can help design that.
Yes, definitely. We welcome the locals' input to it. But of course, like I mentioned before, one of the solutions may be to reduce the number of traffic lanes on El Camino Real through Atherton. But first, we have to do a traffic operation analysis, make sure that this conversion of a traffic lane into a bicycle lane and possibly sidewalk will not cause any undue traffic issues.
So when do we start?
Well, I might mention that we're gonna meet again next week, and we will continue to meet.
That's great.
So do we have any other council comments before we open up to the public? Because I think we had some questions from the public. So if you've got if we come up, if you have a question or a comment, and if you have a question, Caltrans will be happy to respond.
Hi, I'm Zach Whitman. I live at 26 Selby Lane, and I'm wondering what would be the full costs for meeting standards to signalize the intersection of Selby Lane and El Camino. There's a cost of putting in the signal, but there's, from what I understand, that's a full intersection, and it may not be up to standards for a light. I'd also like to know if there are any standards that are being accepted or avoided to make this happen. I would also like to know if there's any sort of a projection for 5 years of what the any increase in traffic on all streets would be, and what the through traffic on Selby Lane would be like with the presence of it was projected with a light versus no light. So those are my questions.
Okay, we have not done a detailed cost estimate for the signal installation for the intersections. Based on our past experience for typical installations like this, it would range just for the capital side, meaning that the cost of the project to install the signal would be anywhere from $500,000 to $800,000. Now, there are many variables in there in the cost estimate. Is how far is the power source? Again, meeting in ADA, I don't know whether that's any right-of-way issues, and also, any environmental issues. Are there any contaminated soil out there? All that would add to the time to develop the project as well as the cost. Do we have any projection for what the volume will be on El Camino Real? We do traffic projections all the time. I don't have the information with me at this time, so I cannot speak to that. As far as installing a signal at the intersection, what that will do for the traffic volume on Shelby is very difficult to predict because it varies from location to location. Certainly, I understand that there may be additional traffic, will be traveling on Shelby because they would like to use the signalized intersections to enter El Camino Real, but depending on the traffic generators on both sides of the highway and also located near Shelby Lane. Now, Having said that, based on the traffic counts that we have done in 2005, Shelby Lane has very little traffic that go through the intersections. Let's say coming from the ATHERTON side, most of the traffic makes the right turn to go south, and then a lot of the traffic, especially during the morning peak hours, going northbound on El Camino Real, making the left turn into westbound Shelby Lane. My suspicion is that parents were, they were bringing their kids to school. So those were school-related traffic, and regardless whether there's a signal or not, that traffic continue to happen. Okay.
Any other questions? Greg? Thanks, Greg.
Hi, my name is Ross Koenigstein. I live at 130 Selby. Thanks for coming to our council meeting. So I guess one of the questions I had, and I think you heard it in some of the questions that the council had for you, was a keen interest on crossing El Camino as opposed to the traffic light itself, even although there are merits and drawbacks to that. Being a parent in my part of Atherton, my wife and I have made it very clear to our daughter, as other parents that we know, that basically under no circumstances are they to attempt walking or bicycling anywhere near El Camino, with one exception, and that is to cross at the light at Atherton. So one of the reasons you just don't see the people crossing there is because it's deadly to cross there. And I think the council kind of, maybe has said this one way or another, but to put a point on it, when you're a pedestrian crossing in those poorly lit areas, and somebody has put these little yield signs on the road, which frankly is confusing to everybody, because yield signs are the international symbol for watch out for the car coming from the right-hand side. Has nothing to do with the pedestrian in front of you. You just can't see these people, and they get killed. This is very different from being in a car crossing El Camino and getting hit by another car, where you're going to get whiplash and somebody's going to get hurt, but chances of getting killed are pretty low. So I think in terms of prioritization, it would be very interesting to our community to make the pedestrian and bicycle crossings across El Camino, a couple of them, I think there's 3, just substantially better. And using zebra crossings, flashing lights, they don't even have to be in the middle of the road, they can be from the sides, just to make it really clear to the automobile that that whole thing lights up at night, and you can see that there's somebody there. That would make a huge difference to this community. Being a person who uses the El Camino Selby intersection every day, when I commute back and forth to work or do errands, I can see the benefit to putting a light there. I can also see many drawbacks to putting a light there, and I think that particular decision I would leave to people who know how to deal with the traffic statistics. But in terms of prioritization, if you ask me about where we think we should be putting our money, I would put it into the safety of the pedestrian and bicycle crossings of El Camino, and any of the affordances that you need to put in to get from the Atherton city streets to those crossings.
Greg?
Is this one you want to step?
Sean.
My comments may not be relevant because I thought the money came out of another source. But I just want to let you know that there is the California Transportation Commission oversees a lot of the money that goes to Caltrans. I served on that commission for 3 years, and I assure you that if Jerry Hill and Rich Gordon go to the commission meeting and make an appeal, it's very effective, as would it be for the mayor or assistant mayor to do the same thing. So there are rules that they make up, but there's also, it's a political process as well as a staff process. So I'm not sure, because of the funding, that the Transportation Commission would have jurisdiction, but if they do, they certainly, your elected representatives would be very effective. Because I think the Isabella and those streets, you've had fatalities and accidents just recently. The data they're using is almost 10 years old. So I don't know how you resort your priority, but you do have another recourse that goes through the, or not bypass, but at least it
puts emphasis on what it is you want by the political process.
Right. Well,
Walter Sleeth, Catalpa Drive. I'm sure the Traffic Commission has probably considered it, but I'm confused. I thought when I heard the gentleman concluding that he was offering that they would pay 50% to do something, somebody else, San Mateo County, would pay 25%, and Atherton would pay 25%. So I guess what I want to know is there something on the table that's ready to be done if the council's willing to pay the 25%?
Possibly a traffic light at Selby Lane and El Camino Real. That one does meet the warrants, but that's a traffic signal.
And the council's not willing, they're not ready to do that then?
Well, that's about $800,000.
I hear that.
And they're not sure they'd do it either.
Okay.
And
I saw an offer and I didn't hear, you know.
yeah, there's no certainty in it yet. That's what's being considered. And again, that data isn't up to date.
It's for information only at this point.
are there any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comments, come back for final council comments. Jerry?
Mike, is that the case that, that there hasn't been any definitive decision? They're not asking us to indicate our willingness to go forward, or when would that come in the whole process, you think, time-wise?
Well, I think what's before the council tonight, I mean, basically what's happened so far is Caltrans has done a warrant study. And so what they're saying to the council is that it does meet warrants. So in other words, Caltrans can support the installation of a signal. In order for them to move forward, now it becomes a funding question. And one of the reasons for being before the council tonight is to see if there's an interest and willingness on the part of Atherton to contribute their 25%. If the answer is yes, then I believe the next step for Caltrans is to then approach San Mateo County to do basically a similar type meeting, letting the county know that that intersection meets warrants and that Caltrans supports it. And again, if the town of Atherton supports it, they will also let San Mateo County know that Atherton's willing to put up their 25% share, and then it becomes a funding question at San Mateo County. So then, let's assume that all three agencies agree, and then it gets into the process of actual design and programming, which I would have to refer back to the Caltrans gentleman about how long of a process that is. And I can tell you it's not 1 month, it's not 6 months, it's not 12 months. It's a longer process than that.
So tonight, if we indicated an interest to go forward, get us in the queue, basically,
Yes.
But there would still be a process by which there'd be a study and the final numbers as to what would be required from Atherton would be determined, and at that point in time, the council would decide whether or not to make that investment.
That's correct. And so by even, for the council saying tonight that, yes, you're willing to support funding your 25% share, and again, I'm going to have to refer back to Caltrans, but that doesn't mean you're making a financial commitment tonight. There's still work to be done, and at some point in time, there will be a cooperative agreement between the town and Caltrans, and when that comes before you, whenever that's going to be in the process, that is when you're going to make that final financial commitment. But tonight, I think what Caltrans is looking for is an indication if the town is interested or if they're definitely not interested, so that they know whether or not they need to be pursuing this with San Mateo County.
Well, I'm definitely interested.
I'm interested.
I'm interested in looking at it more. I don't think that our agenda gives us the authority to make a commitment at this time, but I'm actually really more interested in bicycle and pedestrian safety. That's, our 1.6 miles so that the cars will go slower and we can have pedestrian and bicycle paths on the side.
I'm interested in really exploring crossings, not necessarily traffic lights. I'm interested in having the crossings. We've got 4 major crossing hazards that we need to use. Our schools, for the most part, are on one side of town, and the residents that are crossing the street are at the other side of the town. Our park is we have only one park, and it's right here. So anybody that lives on that side of El Camino has to come over here to enjoy it. People today are riding bikes. People today are walking more, not driving, and it's not safe for them to cross that street. Putting the shark's teeth, you can't see them until you get there. And when somebody's across three lanes, you got 3 lanes here and 3 lanes there with a median, you can't even see. You see all the cars are stopping and people are seeing a queue and they pull around and speed up and go through. And then just as they get there, they see there's somebody in the crosswalk, and that's how we're getting these accidents. And I think that really our money, we're spending $100,000, which I don't understand really how you've chosen, other than to say, well, an intersection has 4 locations, and so we divide by 4. You know, we'd be better spending our money on crossings, for me, as opposed to a traffic light, especially when it's turned out that, based on the information that's been discussed here, that the information that you've looked at is potentially 5 to 10 years old. So I'm more interested in crossings, and I realize that's not the agenda item, but I think more discussion needs to be had with input from the community as to how they'd like to spend the money before we decide to go ahead willy-nilly and just decide to put a traffic light at the far end of Atherton. That's my opinion.
Mayor, could we perhaps ask Mike and Caltrans to look at some updated data for our intersections in terms of accidents and so forth, so we're sure everybody's on the same page there?
Yeah, I think that'd be well worth time, and I'd like to see really a consolidated accident report, as we pointed out before. You have California Highway, we've got Atherton, and then there's several other jurisdictions that support traffic accidents on that street. So we need to all get one consolidated database. So I think it's prudent. So if the city manager can take that,
yes,
the 2 actions.
Gather additional data?
Yeah.
Council suggests yes.
That's exactly what the Transportation Committee requested. We asked for, I don't know if your representative got back to you, but that was the action that we proposed to be taken. We wanted additional data at every intersection, which we were told was not going to involve anything more than accessing the database. So there was no additional money that was going to be involved. And we wanted a complete composite overview of the entire corridor in Atherton and what could be recommended for not only short-term but long-term solutions to the pedestrian problem, not only the vehicular problem at Selby and El Camino, which we can't say we don't want you to pursue and at least see what San Mateo County might be willing to pursue. I mean, I think it would be foolish to say we don't want you to at least go ahead and see what they would be willing to do. However, as if not more important is understanding what the other resolution of our issues might be for pedestrian safety at those other intersections. But we need the data to understand what is happening at those other intersections, and we were told that we would get that data. And that all occurred at the Transportation Committee meeting, if you'll speak with your representative.
Kathy, did I hear you correctly that you're suggesting a dual course here? One would be to collect the data that you talked about, but the other would be to encourage the folks to contact San Mateo County to see what their interest is in that.
It's such a lengthy process, but I don't see why we can't follow a two-pronged approach simultaneously. We're certainly not going to be making any, or you are not going to be making any determination in the next year, probably 2 years. So why not pursue it? Because especially when you're looking at a price tag of $500,000 to $800,000, which sounds reasonable given the fact it cost us $335,000 for El Camino, for Middlefield Encinal, which was not nearly as detailed a traffic light. You're going to have to consider what it's going to be by the time you actually install it. It could be even more. So why not pursue that?
If we say move forward with the other jurisdiction, and a year from now we say, well, wait a second, we want to spend our money differently, are there any ramifications other than people have their feelings hurt? No. I would say pursue. I'm going to pursue two paths.
Mike, do you think that makes sense? Is that acceptable? Do you think to?
Yes, I do think it makes sense, and also the council discussion with regard to putting together a plan for that segment, because a plan does not exist today, and that is something that staff is pursuing, and there is, and one of the issues there again is funding. So we believe we have identified a grant program that we can apply for this type of planning grant. And the grant program specifically that we're looking at, it's actually a Caltrans grant program. It's called the Community-Based Transportation Planning Grant. It's an annual grant program, and one of the purposes is to get heavily community involvement in developing, solutions to create more livable streets. And so what we're talking about, we believe, falls within that line. In fact, that's the reason why we made a request to Caltrans earlier in October for all this traffic data, because that was information that we needed in order to put together a very relevant, very compelling grant. And so just so you know, the specific information that we've already requested from Caltrans, again, and this is for the entire segment of El Camino Rail within the town of Atherton, is traffic volumes along that corridor, both existing and projected, the level of service, both existing and projected, any traffic or safety studies and analysis that have previously been performed. We also ask for accident rates, locations, and accident types, including the types of vehicle accidents, bike ped type accidents for the last 5 years, again, for that entire corridor. Again, because this is factual and quantitative information, we feel is going to be necessary to put together as strong a grant application as possible to be very competitive.
We need a motion.
No, we can't do a motion.
No,
Okay.
no.
Sorry.
No, we just direct to staff.
They've got the general feel.
Okay, very nice.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming.
guys for staying and presenting.
Okay, item number 19 is the staff report with no action to be taken, but it's informational on the library services that George put together. Thank you for a very comprehensive and detailed report. I noticed that we also have library personnel in the audience. So do you want to walk us through or just take questions? How would you like to?
Either way, the council's prerogative there. I can walk you through the report. It's basic information. It's a lot of background and history that the council and the community are probably well aware of. There's not a lot of new information in the report. It's primarily provided as information similar to the council. I don't want the voluminous background attachments to it. And Anne Marie Spade is also here from the council. We're happy to answer any questions the council might have at this point.
As the representative to the JPA, I was disappointed in this report. While it contains lots and lots of information, it's information that was provided by the JPA. That in itself doesn't mean I was disappointed in the information provided by the JPA. But this was supposed to be more than information provided by the JPA. This was supposed to be, I had thought, a study that gave us, one, what the JPA was, and on the other side, a comprehensive study of what other libraries were. And instead, what we have is 2-year-old data about other libraries being compared to data from last year concerning our library. A note that says that the data that's 2 years old from these other libraries, it's important to note that it doesn't include an overhead fee that includes part of a larger system of interconnected services. I don't know how important that is and what part that would play in these expenses. It's thus comparing apples and oranges. I don't know whether or not these amounts are verifiable. I don't know whether or not they include IT services or HR. I don't know what the fiscal picture of these libraries look like, what the quality of service of these libraries look like. I don't know what these libraries are really like. They were not in any way studied so that an accurate comparison can be made. Clearly, I have always been someone who is concerned about budget and expenses. And I can't, in good conscience, look at $157 per person and say, that makes good sense when you compare it to $44 or $62 or $69. I'm not going to say that I would want to support that. So what is the difference? And you can't make a decision based upon this data because there hasn't been any study done of the other libraries. Just these numbers that are 2 years old without any explanation of what those numbers mean. And that isn't what I thought we had asked to be done 6 months ago.